Welcome to The State of Us.
Beyond mainstream cable news and party lines, with a millennial and a boomer, The State of Us pushes past the noise and uncovers all the issues that matter.
Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
Will your iPhone disappear? Yes, I'm hoping that title grabbed your attention today, folks. It should. All you iPhone lovers out there. Now, full disclosure, I do not have an iPhone. I have, however, had an iPhone before. But our producer is gonna speak with us today because he is an iPhone cultist. I think is that the appropriate word? Probably so. But what we're looking at, right, is several things surrounding will your iPhone disappear? Now, is it likely your iPhone's going anywhere in the next, few months? Probably not. But there are a couple interesting things going on with the world's quote-unquote most valuable company. Obviously, you've probably heard about the lawsuits coming from multiple angles at Apple. Yes, led off by Fortnite, but now a number of others are supporting the lawsuit, saying that Apple is unreasonably and unlawfully operating its app marketplace. And then kind of on a flip side, too, what's China got to do with this? The China challenge for Apple, because they're facing some serious hurdles on that front. And for all of you that love your iPhones out there, or really even if you use most phones, there's a decent chance they're made in China. And this could carry serious repercussions in the coming months and years for all of you that love your iPhone. But of course, we couldn't begin a conversation on technology and all things Apple without
TrueChat senior historian and an educator of more than 30 years. Here is your friendly redneck liberal, Lance Jackson.
An apple a day keeps the teacher away, right? Now, that's what I always heard when I was in school.
Is that how it goes?
Yep. And as your Apple iPhone is disappearing, we're gonna have an appearance of the Devon creature today. So stay tuned. We'll see when Justin goes to him. But I'm like you, Justin. Never had one of them iPhone things. But before
I've had one.
Yeah, well,
I don't have one right
I've
now.
never even had one.
But your wife has one, right? That you play with sometimes?
I don't know. Is that what she has? I don't know what she is. Okay.
It's bad that I know,
but I don't know.
Phone your wife's got, but you don't know.
But I do want to just quickly say to all the gamers out there, I am a gamer, hardcore. I just play Atari and pinball, and so I do game. I just don't game with your stuff. I got 2 old systems, and then I have a vintage system that I bought 2 Christmases ago that plays Donkey Kong and all the good fun games that I spent quarters on back in the day. So while y'all are complaining about having to pay your fees, at least you don't have to push a quarter in the machine every time you want to play at the video game parlor. So there you go.
So here's what's happening. Epic Games, right, has filed a lawsuit at Apple, towards Apple and Google, claiming monopolies on their part. Now, this occurred back in August, okay, so we're into October now, and that process is ongoing. But there's been a lot happening, and this is our opportunity where we actually get to look at it. And yes, like Lance said, we could look at this through the lens of specifically what Fortnite's claiming. It is kind of difficult to feel sorry for Fortnite because they do boast 350 million players worldwide, some of whom are using other games made by Epic as well. So really, if you multiply that out, it's quite a bit more. And as with all iPhone and iPad apps, the only way for iOS users to download it, though, is through Apple's App Store. Fortnite is free to install, right, Lance? So you can download it, and there's no cost.
Exactly.
But the way it makes money is through its in-app payments. In fact, it made about $60 million in the 3 months prior to August alone, and Apple takes its standard 30% cut out of all of those in-app purchases. So for those that aren't familiar, right, if you buy an app through the App Store on your iPhone, Apple gets 30% of whatever that is. So if you paid $10 for it, they're going to take $3, right? And that includes not just, so what happens if it's a free app? Well, usually free apps have one of two things. They either have in-app ads or they have in-app purchases, and sometimes they have both. Those in-app purchases, Lance, Apple's going to take 30% of those as well. So if you spend $100 inside of an app, right, Apple's going to take $30 of that $100.
So I don't understand the problem because you are using an Apple product to access the application that's on your phone, and the company involved is getting to keep 70%. If you don't want your application, if you don't want your app to be in Apple's hands, can't you create it and market it through something else? Isn't the reason that you're marketing your app on an iPhone is because there are so many iPhone and Apple users out there that you'll make more money? Isn't that why you put the app out there with Apple anyway? And don't you have the opportunity? And I know I'm not the techie, but I mean, don't you have the opportunity to put your apps elsewhere? But you say, well, I can't because then nobody would ever find it because everybody's using Apple. Okay. You're still getting 70%. So what's your complaint? So
I think one of the things that's important to understand, Lance, and this is where it gets a little odd, right, is if I buy an iPhone, okay, it's my iPhone then, right? I mean, I bought it. It belongs to me. It's not, Apple doesn't own that technology anymore. Once I have purchased the iPhone, I bought it outright. Isn't it my iPhone? No, it's not. So I paid the $1,200 stupid retail price for this iPhone. That's definitely not worth that much, but I paid the price, right? I bought it in cash. I even walked in real cash, not a check, not a debit card. I walked in with my cash that Lance gave me, bought this iPhone, and you're telling me it's not mine?
Okay. When it's broken, where do you go to get it fixed?
Well, probably Apple. I mean, you can take it other places, but probably Apple.
Well, I'm just thinking that with your card. Yeah, I mean, okay, technically it's yours, but you can't fix it. So you need somebody else to work on it and to keep it operating and running. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yes, in your definition of yours, okay, it is, but you can't make one yourself.
But this is where I'm saying that's where the argument's murky, right? Because I paid money for this. Supposedly it's my property now in the respect that if I want to throw it at the wall and break it in half, right, I'm not going to get in trouble for that. Apple can't come after me and said, you broke our phone. No, it was my phone. I was allowed to break it if that's what I wanted to do. At the same time, to your point though, Lance, this is where I think this is where they're making the argument about the monopoly, right? Realistically, if you want your phone to be serviced, right, or if you have a problem with it, you're probably going to Apple. Yes, I know everybody out there, there's other places you can take it. You can try to replace it yourself. I have actually, coming from somebody who has replaced a screen of an iPhone before, I can tell you that it can be done. However, Apple would tell you that you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to bring it to us. And I think that's what most people do. So the point here, this argument is, okay, well, if it's really mine, right, but Apple tells me what I can and cannot put on it, is it really mine? And that's kind of, I think, Fortnite's getting at here, like with an Android phone, okay?
Wait a minute. Explain to me. Because I really am trying to understand this.
Yeah.
They're not telling you that you can't put Fortnite on your phone.
Yeah, they are.
They're just taking a 30% cut from it.
Well, right. Yes. You can put it on your phone.
But they did not.
As long as they take their cut.
I'm playing semantics with you, but let's get real here because this is my strength, not technology, but semantics, is that they didn't tell you can't put Fortnite on your phone. They said you can have Fortnite on your phone. And they're not charging you any more for Fortnite than what Epic Games wants to charge you for Fortnite. All they're doing is taking a 30% cut from Epic Games. They're not attacking you. They're attacking Epic Games by taking a 30% profit off of Epic's idea. But on the counterpoint here, and this is my point, Epic Games wouldn't have a Fortnite if it weren't for the iPhone. They wouldn't have all of those customers. They might have 10 million, 100 million, but they wouldn't have 350 million, which then gives them a free advertising base to offer other games that they have.
Sure.
And for all of that marketing, they're paying a measly 30% to Apple, whose device is free on their phones. Did I do a pretty good job representing my side?
Yes. Well,
Lance, I don't really understand how this all works because I don't really get into the apps and all that kind of stuff. My flip phone doesn't have that capability. If it does, I don't know how to do it. So
I think where the part of where the controversy comes in is if you have an Android phone, okay, which I do. Android is the operating system of the phone, right? I have a Samsung Galaxy phone, not an iPhone. I can do what's called side loading apps. Okay, so there's the official, it's called the Play Store instead of App Store, but it's the same thing essentially, right? There's the Play Store on Google-based Android phones, which is what I have. You're still able to load apps that aren't in the Play Store. Like you can go to a website, download an app that wasn't sent through the official Google Play Store. On an iPhone, you can't do that. You can only put things on your phone that go through Apple's App Store. That's the only way you can load things on your phone. And that is part of Apple's ongoing argument, for the past, 25 years about their ecosystem as a whole, is that it's a closed ecosystem, right? They very tightly control what you can and cannot do to your devices, from customization options to settings to the apps that you put on them. They're very much in control of all of that. And that's something that's their own argument. I mean, I'm not being harsh there. I'm saying I think that is part of what they have argued for years, is the benefit of their ecosystem is that it is a closed ecosystem, and their ability to maintain control over it allows them to offer, better privacy, better user accessibility, and a better user experience, because there's less glitches and less problems the more control you maintain over an ecosystem.
Quick question, just to clarify something for me. Do you then have the capability on your Android phone to download Fortnite?
Yes.
And at that point,
even if Google doesn't want you to.
Right.
Okay.
But Apple doesn't get a 30% cut then.
No.
Problem solved. If I'm Epic Games, just tell everybody to get an Android phone.
Right. Yeah. That would be what you do, right? Ideally. Now, the argument continues, and this is what we're going to get to next, is generally speaking, this, is it an illegal monopoly? Because we've talked about before, monopolies in and of themselves in this country aren't necessarily illegal.
That's correct.
The question is, does the monopoly, right? Usually two things are important to prove. Does it harm consumers, right, in some material way? Can we measure some kind of harm that the monopoly causes consumers? And does it stifle or stop competition? Those are the kind of important questions to answer about. I don't think it's, is Apple a monopoly on their products? Absolutely. I think that's pretty clear. Is it an unlawful monopoly? That's a different question, and that's what we're going to talk about coming up. Keep it here on The State of Us. We'll be right back.
We are The State of Us. Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
So Lance and I have gone back and forth here, talked a little bit, and full disclosure, folks, just so you know, I lean toward Lance's side of this, right? Apple developed the iPhone. It's their invention, and if you don't like the way that they run their app store, you don't have to buy an iPhone. There are other phones that, again, and here, folks, right? Because I can hear the Apple fanboys, and we're going to bring one in here in just a second. It's too bad we don't have Bradley today, Lance, our editing producer, because he's a big. He's Apple ecosystem all the way. He's got the MacBook Air, he's got his iPhone, he's got an iPad, he's got his AirPods, right? The whole 9 yards.
Yeah, I mean he is. But isn't that like in the old days when I'd sit around and listen to the old guys talk in the, when I was a young kid walking around and running through the living room and getting yelled at, and they'd talk about which was better, Ford or Chevy. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, okay, if you don't like what Ford offers, then go buy a Chevy. And if you like the bucket seats on a Chevy better, and you think the leather is better, and you like the fuel emissions, and you like the gas system, and you have that choice. That doesn't make it a monopoly. You have a choice between what you like. And if you want to argue that yours is better, and I'm not trying to take the Devin's arguments away from him, but if you like what they're doing, then you got to take the good with the bad. You have to take okay, I like it because of this. Okay, then you're stuck with what you don't like about it. Just like if I buy a Chevy instead of a Ford or a Honda or whatever, I get the good things that I like, and I get the things that, well, I don't really like it. And if I don't like that, then I got to go out and build my own.
The other side of, I think that one of the things that makes the argument a little weaker is that more people use Android-based phones than use iPhones. In terms of operating system share worldwide, Google's Android operating system is on more devices than iOS, which is the operating system of iPhones. Now, that said, that's because iOS is only on iPhones. iOS is the operating software that runs on iPhones, and you can't put it on anything other than an iPhone. Google's Android operating system can basically be put on any device. If Lance had the technical know-how, right, to go out and build himself a smartphone, he could put Google's Android on there. He could do that. He's allowed to do that. He could not put iOS on there from Apple, okay? So there is that material difference and just different philosophy. Android's a lot more about letting phone manufacturers customize its operating system and change it to make it. It is very similar, folks, you know, especially if you're older, right, to the way PCs operate. Windows can be installed on different brands, right, of machines. You could put it on Dell, Asus. You could put it on a Surface product, which is Microsoft's brand, right? You can put it on a lot of different things. He's got his AirPods, right? The whole 9 yards.
Yeah, I mean, he is. But isn't that like in the old days when I'd sit around and listen to the old guys talk in the, you know, when I was a young kid walking around and running through the living room and getting yelled at, and they'd talk about which was better, Ford or Chevy. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, okay, if you don't like what Ford offers, then go buy a Chevy. And if you like the bucket seats on a Chevy better, and you think the leather is better, and you like the fuel emissions, and you like the gas system, and you have that choice. That doesn't make it a monopoly. You have a choice between what you like. And if you want to argue that yours is better, and I'm not trying to take the Devin's arguments away from him, but if you like what they're doing, then you got to take the good with the bad. You have to take okay, I like it because of this. Okay, then you're stuck with what you don't like about it. Just like if I buy a Chevy instead of a Ford or a Honda or whatever, I get the good things that I like, and I get the things that, well, I don't really like it. And if I don't like that, then I got to go out and build my own.
The other side of, I think that one of the things that makes the argument a little weaker is that more people use Android-based phones than use iPhones. In terms of operating system share worldwide, Google's Android operating system is on more devices than iOS, which is the operating system of iPhones. Now, that said, that's because iOS is only on iPhones. iOS is the operating software that runs on iPhones, and you can't put it on anything other than an iPhone. Google's Android operating system can basically be put on any device. If Lance had the technical know-how, right, to go out and build himself a smartphone, he could put Google's Android on there. He could do that. He's allowed to do that. He could not put iOS on there from Apple, okay? So there is that material difference and just different philosophy. Android's a lot more about letting phone manufacturers customize its operating system and change it to make it. It is very similar, folks, you know, especially if you're older, right, to the way PCs operate. Windows can be installed on different brands, right, of machines. You could put it on Dell, Asus. You could put it on a Surface product, which is Microsoft's brand, right? You can put it on a lot of different things. It doesn't have to be a Microsoft product in order for you to put Windows on it.
What about on my Smith Corona typewriter for us really old people?
Well,
is it like it? Can I take the ribbon from one typewriter and put it on a different brand of typewriter?
If it's an Apple typewriter, you cannot. But if it's not an Apple typewriter, you can. But let's hear from the Devin Creature, because he is an iPhone user, and he does not like that Apple charges a 30% commission on its App Store. So tell us why, Devin. What's your take here?
First, I would like to say that I would not exactly consider myself an iPhone cultist, as you worded earlier.
You're not going to wear the label proud?
No, okay. I'm not.
Because did you hear that Apple filed trademark recently for iPhone for life?
Nope. did not.
They registered that trademark. It's coming.
Oh, I can't
the
wait.
membership. You're going to pay a membership, and then you'll have iPhones for life. Just sign here. It'll all be okay.
Sell my soul away.
That's
so
right.
I get an iPhone every year.
Yes, exactly.
That's
Okay,
a fair
go ahead.
compromise.
Go ahead.
Anyways,
Sorry.
so I really think Lance had a valid point earlier. It's like choosing between two different vehicles. I mean, you take with what you know you get. And I mean, I really like what Apple provides in the iPhones. I kind of like some of the ecosystem, but I'm not a fully part of it.
Because you have a PC.
Yes, but that's mostly because, I'm a computer science major, and it's just the way better system for that.
Oh, okay.
But
Man, Bradley's going to be upset when he's listening to this. He's
I know.
Like, man, Devin.
No, I mean, he just said it. You take the good with the bad. You work whatever, right? I mean, that's what you're saying, Devin, is that whatever they offer, you have to weigh that versus the other device and which one is better for the job I'm trying to accomplish.
And even though I still agree, I don't really still like the fact that they charge like a 30%. Sure, Apple's more of the premium line. It should be harder to get into it instead of just throwing your app there and, they only get like 5% off of it. I don't know exactly how the Google Play Store does theirs either, but I really think we should try to work something out where both parties are more happy, or maybe just lower the cut to 25% or 20%. I feel like that's a better middle range. I feel 30% is a little high.
But why 30%? And I'm not trying to pin you to the wall here, but what's the difference between 25 and 30 in your mind? I know the number difference is 5, but what does that doesn't address the whole idea that they're charging. And if I'm a company and I want to charge this X amount of money for my product, isn't that up to me? And then the consumer decides whether or not they're willing to pay that to buy my product, and that drives my price. I mean, maybe I make a $2 toy that I charge $100 for. If people are willing to pay $100 for it, I charge $100. If it sits idly on the shelves at Christmas time, then I have to mark it down to $5 to get it to move. Then I sell it for $5. Isn't that the right of the company who owns it? In this case, Apple, to charge whatever they want to charge. And if people don't want to pay it, then they can go elsewhere. I mean, isn't that our capitalist market economy? I don't know, Devin. What do you think? I'm just bringing that. I'm just asking.
Well, that is actually very hard to answer because it's such a valid point. I mean, you're not wrong. It is Apple's decision to do that. But I mean, I feel like for me personally, over time, I think the creators should get a little bit more money because I'm looking as a career as a content creator for games and apps and things like that. And so obviously I would want to make more money myself, but I feel like these other people are trying to do the same thing. And I don't know, it just, for me, seems like a little pricey, but it is if that's what it would be around that time, I'm just going to push my apps out there rather than just take the cut and not have my app on Apple's systems at all.
And I think there's the bigger conversation too, which Devin, you just brought up, this idea between content creators and content distributors, and how much are distributors entitled to as part of, because they didn't create the content, right? They're merely responsible for delivering content. And now you get content distributors that have also become content creators. And this is where the world on the whole is getting murky. Apple's not just a distributor of apps, right? And here is wherein lies the challenge of Apple's defense. Apple has its own apps that it puts in the App Store, right? It has for years prevented people from changing the default Mail app, for example, from the Apple Mail app to, say, Outlook or Yahoo Mail or Gmail, right? It prohibits you from making that change. You can download the app, but you can't make it the default. And when you search for Mail app, right, on your App Store, what's the first thing that comes up, regardless of how popular it is, regardless of whether or not it should be the top result? It's the top result because it belongs to Apple. Now, Apple's going to tell you in their defense, that they do not engage in anti-competitive behavior with their apps versus others. But that's where the App Store, to me, that's where the real argument lies, where I could see that case being made, that Apple unfairly advantages its own products over other products in its App Store. And that is where you get into anti-competitive behavior, because if you're saying, well, my only choice to be on an iPhone is to be in the App Store, but then Apple is unfairly, right? They are hindering my success of my product to favor their own product because they're not just a distributor, they're also a content creator now.
Isn't that what, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the government said to Bill Gates when he was loading all of his devices with software, and they said you can't do that because there was other software available, but people wouldn't buy. The company said people aren't buying our software that may be better than what they have because Bill Gates is automatically loading his software on the computer. And so they're not searching for better software to replace it. Wasn't that the same big antitrust lawsuit that Microsoft faced back in the 80s and 90s or whenever that was?
Same general gist in terms of the concept was, Microsoft is unfairly boxing out competition by striking deals that prohibit the manufacturers of devices from putting anything on the device other than what Microsoft sanctions. And that's where it gets into, again, Microsoft made the deal, right? They created the software. They felt like they were in the right to say, if you don't like it, you don't have to work with us. But at the time, Microsoft also occupied over 90% of the software market. So it was really hard to make a case that, you just won't use Microsoft. It's like, yeah, right. Who are you going to use? There is no real other competition because at that point, Apple was almost in bankruptcy. So, that's where, at the moment, iPhones only occupy about 45% of the U.S. smartphone market. Now, I say only, but keep this in mind that when we talk about the next closest smartphone, right, they don't even occupy half of that percentage because Android's operating system may make up the other, 55%, but the devices are diversified. Right? So there's Samsung devices, there's Sony devices, there's all these other devices, right? Manufacturers that are using the software. And they each have their own apps and their own content that they preload on their devices for Android. But iPhone occupies the largest single share of the smartphone market.
You said in America, but you're talking about a worldwide market. I mean, people play Fortnite and buy apps all over the world in a much greater number than America takes up as a share percentage. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
I mean, so it's a bigger picture than just a USA picture. It's a worldwide picture for these companies.
Worldwide, Apple's share drops quite a bit. And speaking of the worldwide picture, and that's part of what we want to talk about next, is what's China got to do with all this, right? They've been working on something called the Belt and Road Initiative for years, and it's this idea that they want to weave themselves into all these different countries. So let's talk about China and whether or not they might take away your iPhone. Keep it here on The State of Us. We'll be right back.
We are The State of Us. Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
If we're talking about China, the friendly redneck liberal can't be far away. They're interested in just pushing the world, right, to the best it can be, right?
I would have felt that way had I been alive during World War II and before Mao Zedong took over the country, but since then, that's not really my feeling. No, it's not. The leadership and government of China is after the same thing that the United States is after. So we're both playing the same game. They play the game sometimes with a different set of rules, but with this Belt Road Initiative, they're playing the game with the same rules that we used. So it's kind of an interesting comparison this time. Because before everybody says, well, China's communist and they devalue their money and they do this and they do all these things that give them an advantage, to go along with our first two segments, an unfair advantage when it comes to world politics. But with this Belt Road Initiative, they're doing it very similarly to what the United States tried to do with the Marshall Plan after World War II, and with what the United States was trying to do in Pakistan back in the 1970s, and now they're trying to do it. And that is very simply, well, we're going to go into these underdeveloped countries, and we're going to offer them our technology and our money, and we'll build up their infrastructure, and then they will thank us so much that they will allow us then to have opportunities in their country, which means we can spread our system of government. This was the whole concept of the United States and China and the Soviet Union during the Cold War.
So what's it got to do with the iPhone, Lance?
Well, that's your part of the story.
Part of the thinking here, right, in watching what China's doing is understanding one of the big differences is that China manufactures and supplies a lot of what the U.S. uses. So yeah, we can ruffle feathers, right, and we can puff up our chests and we can talk mean to China, but at some point, now from a business standpoint, should they do this? No, but that doesn't mean they won't do it, right? They could just say we're just not going to allow shipments of iPhones to leave the country, even though they belong to Apple, even though China doesn't own that product. If they get mad, right, they can do that. They'll just put the military outside the factory and say, yeah, you're not taking these anywhere.
Why does Apple have their iPhones made in China?
If they were made in the United States of America, they'd probably cost about 5 times what they cost, and you'd spend $5,000 for an iPhone.
So before everybody gets all upset that, well, what's my iPhone? Why is it coming from China?
Yeah.
Understand it's being made in China because then Apple's allowed to sell it to you for a cheaper price.
Part of China's big effort here, folks, isn't just about iPhones. It's about smartphones, computers, all technology. They are partnering and trying to get in the good graces of all these countries that just so happen, now China would tell you that it's because they want to build up these countries. But these countries just so happen to have and control 80 to 90% of the world's supply of the components necessary to make things like batteries. And last I checked, if we take that battery out of that iPhone, it's not going to do you much good. So yeah, we can make our iPhones, Lance, but China may have control over the countries that we need in order to make the batteries to power the iPhones. It was just announced less than a month ago that we are beginning an initiative to open up some additional mining here in this country to have more access to our own resources that are necessary to make certain components of smartphones and computers.
But batteries are just becoming a more important part of our everyday life. And so why wouldn't you, if you were China or the United States or anybody who wants to have some world leadership powers in the future, be trying to corner the market on the items that are needed to build better and more efficient batteries?
Devin, I would ask, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but my assumption would be that one of perhaps the most anxiety-inducing part of owning an iPhone is when you see that the battery icon has turned red and that you're almost out of charge and you're not near a charger and the phone's going to die.
That's pretty accurate. So I always make sure my phone's always charged, and I have chargers everywhere. I have one on my keychain in case I'd really need it. So that's just me personally. Maybe that's just smart thinking in general because, any phone can die at any time.
My wife's battery went bad. We had to replace the battery. And it doesn't matter. You charge it and it only holds the charge for 10 minutes. You got it at 100% power, and then it's all of a sudden down to 10%. And you're constantly on the charger and you need to replace that battery.
Apple recently did have a lawsuit going over their battery life and how it's this whole complicated mess I can't really go into because I mostly just observed it. It was definitely interesting that they were changing stuff with their operating systems to try to benefit the older batteries.
Having listened to our conversation, Devin, about China and the reach into the supply chain and the control that they can exert over iPhones, my guess is China's not something that you really think about on a day-to-day basis. But do you think that people should be paying more attention to how we interact with China? than they currently do. Because a lot of people, it's China. It doesn't really have an impact on my day-to-day life. Well, the minute that they cut off those supply lines, they have a big impact on your life, because your iPhone could go from costing $1,000 to $5,000 overnight if they do something like that. So what is your take on that? Should people be paying more attention to China, or is it just leave it to the politicians?
I definitely think, as a majority of America kind of likes to ignore any other country but America. So I do think it's really important to try to see what other countries are doing and how we are interacting with them and how they're interacting with other countries, because our own ignorance is our own defeat. And I don't feel like if we can see what's going on before, anyone could take action, then, I don't know what we would do in that course. We just have to live with it. That's because we chose not to look at the details.
Lance is giving me the I got nothing, boss. I think that's
I got something, but I don't want to get into another show. I don't want to blow up Devin's balloon, but the United States will never just sit back and say, "Oh, there's nothing we can do about it. I guess we just have to."
I'm talking about the people. Not the United
people
States.
aren't either.
Oh no!
If they do something, somebody does something to harm us, I don't think that's the American way. That's a different.
No, I'm not talking
that's a
about
different
harming
America than I
us.
grew up in.
That's more of a hypothetical for me of them coming over and trying to intentionally hurt us. I'm talking more of like, I'm just going to drop you.
Oh, no. I mean, if they try to cut off our supplies to batteries and to, they might as well attack us, because I think people would rise up. But again,
you think so?
Yeah, I just really disagree. Maybe that's the mindset of somebody who's, much younger than I am. Maybe that's the new mindset. But, if somebody tries to tried to cut off our oil supply, we might have to send a few jets over. So, that was the taking of America for the whole time that we were coming and rising into power. And I don't think that we're just going to lay down and take anybody just saying, this is too bad, we're not going to send anything to you. So I just disagree with that. Maybe I'm wrong. But I don't think we would take that sitting down and just, quote, have to deal with it. No, we would deal with it. And, they wouldn't like probably the way we would deal with it. I'm not saying we should deal with it in that manner, but I think that would be the immediate response of the majority of Americans. Not the government, but the majority of Americans as well. And which is why it's important that everybody understand this, so we don't have to get to that point. This is why you should be interested in it now, so we don't get to the point where we have to take some kind of strategic action that none of us want to take in order to keep living the way we want to live. That's the importance of this, I think.
What I thought I took from what Devin was saying, and maybe I misunderstood, because Lance's answer is different than what I was thinking. I thought, Devin, that your point was that most Americans don't pay much attention to the rest of the world until and unless something happens, like cutting off supply lines, and then all of a sudden now we care, but we don't care most of the time. And if we cared more of the time, then we wouldn't get into those knee-jerk reaction situations where we invade another country or send over jets because it's like, oh my God, how could they do that? It's like, well, they've been planning to do it for years. If we'd been paying attention, we probably could have headed off at the pass and not gotten into this terrible, awful situation that we're in.
I will say that is where I was kind of more aligning at, but I do think Lance had some good points to bring up and an argument, and I exactly see where he comes from. I mean, I don't think people are going